mean, there was no question about it. And I know I spent many trips out to Los Angeles and many hours and days in the hospital next to him. And man, I tell you, I don't know if I could have handled what he went through.
Yeah, that was rough with the neck injury and then just the house situation.
Well, and his health problem too. I mean, he was literally couldn't talk at the end, and he would lay in the bed and he would move his eyes, and very disheartening. But I remember the first time I walked in, they flew me out there because they said if anybody's going to revive Ed and get him back in the saddle, it would be me. And I'm not just saying that because of ego. That was just the relationship we had. And I walked in that room, and his eyes just lit up, and his eyebrows went up, and because he didn't expect to see me walk in. And I would spend 12, 16, 18 hours a day in his hospital room with him, in a chair next to him. I was very close to him. He was a sweetheart.
I had a chance to interview Ed several times, and always made you feel like you were his closest friend. I mean, I never met him face to face, but we did the first interview with him. He made you feel that way, and then subsequent interviews, he remembered things from the previous interviews. So that was one of the great things about Ed.
Ed had a love for people, and he told me so many times that he says, "I want to be remembered as the celebrity that wasn't ever friendly with his fans." He told me stories of people that he knew that would, put on sunglasses and a raincoat and a hat so that they wouldn't be recognized and wouldn't give an autograph. This guy would walk into an airport, and if somebody kind of looked over and recognized him at the ticket counter, he would walk to them, tell their little boy, little girl, give me a high five. You want a picture? You want an autograph? I mean, I've worked with a lot of celebrities in my life. Nobody ever does that.
No.
They say, "Oh boy, that person recognized me. Let's go, hurry up, and let's get to the gate." Not Ed. Not my pal Ed.
Now, you mentioned earlier you're going to have Jet Satsing on. Are there new tapes that have not been released before for Johnny? I hadn't heard about that.
What happened was this, and there was a lot of publicity surrounding this. Even Jay Leno had a clip on, and thank Jeff for sending over to him. There has been, it's a funny story. These tapes of The Tonight Show have been stored in a mine. I sound like Ed now with the mayonnaise bottle.
Funkin' Wagnalls Ford.
These were stored in a mine, a salt mine, in, I don't know if it was Kansas or Utah.
Oh, I did hear about that. Okay, yeah.
And they've been stored there for years because it's the right temperature.
Right.
Now they've digitally remastered these and are releasing more that you can get online, JohnnyCarson.com. And if you're a production company and you want to use a clip, it's licensing.com. It's licensing.johnnycarson.com. But here's the irony, and you'd appreciate this, Doug. From 1962 till, maybe the late 60s when Johnny moved out to the West Coast and he owned the show at that point, those early years, because of the cost of tape, 2-inch tape, audio tape, and I say they, NBC, would just reuse them.
Yeah.
They would just reuse them. So there are a few that are still left. There are a few with kinescope recordings, which is, you know what that is, and some soundtracks. But a lot of those early shows, the first 9 years, were lost to just being taped over. You've got the Tonight Show, and then they taped the newscast over it. So you don't have the vault of 30 years, but you have the vault of 20-some plus with the ones that they could find for the first 9 or 10 years.
I can't understand how. I know a lot of the variety shows from back then. I know Steve Allen was railing against that when he was alive. All the great shows that were lost, they just erased over them. I mean, why wouldn't you keep that just for archive purposes?
Well,
it's hard to believe.
First of all, it was an hour-and-a-half show, as was Steve's show, an hour-and-a-half, when he did the Tonight Show. And tape at that time, and this is what Jeff was telling me, was $200, $250, so they just use it over again. And they didn't know. When Johnny Carson walked out from behind the curtain the first time in 1962, and his first guest was Groucho Marx and all these, famous people, he was nervous, obviously. And the fellow behind stage, he says, "What are you nervous for? In 10 years, this won't make any difference," because they never thought it was going to last 30 years. So consequently, they just figured, well, we'll just tape over it. But and Steve was a big advocate of that.
Now these are tapes from 1970 through 92, something like that.
Yeah, there are still some that they found,
great.
like I say, with kinescope recording.
Yeah.
And they have the first show with Groucho Marx. I can't think of everybody who was on there. But there was
Mel Brooks was on there.
Yeah, Mel Brooks, right.
Tony Bennett was on there.
Tony Bennett,
yeah.
That's exactly right. They have the soundtrack. So what they've always used on these documentaries is the stills and the soundtrack, but they don't have the actual video.
Well, that'd be great. I got to check that out then.
JohnnyCarson.com. Here I am promoting JohnnyCarson.com.
And Johnny, I saw a story last week. His estate donated something like $150 million to charity. So Johnny's still doing great work, even though he's been gone for 5 years.
Yeah, and he has a son that lives down here in Florida.
Oh, does he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he lives over, I believe, on the Atlantic coast. He has another son that is out in California, and of course his third son was killed.
Right. I remember that in the motorcycle or car accident. He talked about it on the air.
Photographer, Doug.
Yeah.
And he went to go take a picture of a landscape out on the west coast in California, and the car slid off the embankment.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
And it wasn't long after that Ed lost his oldest son, Michael, to cancer, and he was in his 30s, like 38, and he said the first phone call that I got was from Johnny. Because they obviously now had something in common and had he was empathetic to what Ed was going through.
I remember Johnny did that tribute to his son at the end of that show, showed some of his son's photography. It was one of the rare moments you saw Johnny get personal, but obviously that was a great tribute to his son. But
I don't know if you know the story behind that.
I know that the producer, I heard, did not want to do that, and Johnny overruled that or something?
No, what happened, and the producer was Freddie DeCordova, who, of course, did the show, the Bonzo thing there, the monkey.
Right, the Ronald Reagan movie.
Ronald Reagan, and produced the Jack Benny show.
That I know, yeah.
Freddie DeCordova was a big guy. In fact, I interviewed him before he died. But what happened was Johnny wanted to wait to the end of the show to do this tribute, because he didn't want to kick off the show after he was off for like 2 months and kind of set the theme of a memorial and then try to be jovial after that.
Right.
So he went to go do it, and the comment that he made was, I want to show a picture, first of all, of my son, because the picture that they've been showing on the news is the one from his license, his driver's license, and nobody ever wants to be remembered by their driver's license picture. And he went to show this, and they were short for time, and Freddie DeCordova gave him the signal to rap. You don't do that to Johnny Carson, especially when you're doing that. From that point forward, they could have went back, because the show was taped, and they could have edited out a part of an interview with a guest or something to give Johnny the full length that he wanted. Doug, from that point forward, and those guys were close, Freddie and Carson, from that point forward to the end of the show, Freddie DeCordova directed the show from a remote truck trailer in the parking lot.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
He was never allowed back on the set while the show was being produced because of what he did to Johnny that night.
I knew there was some bad blood after that, but I didn't realize it went that long. Wow.
He said you produced the show from the trailer, the remote trailer out in the driveway. He says, or from the control room. He says, but in the studio, you're out of here.
Well, John.